Got it. Should have brought some books, so. Allowed to talk. Promote the panelists. Yeah. I was up till 11:30, just doing. Nick, you look like you're in the red room or something. Oh boy.
Kind of.
That's what I was wondering.
Very nice cabin. Oh, wow. A lot of feedback.
I guess.
Oh crap.
That's fine. I'm not letting anyone see my face today, so.
All right, Nick, do you see the controls?
Got him.
Here, I'm gonna move Troy over just so you can get an early.
Early test.
Yeah, Troy, I'm sorry, I'm gonna temporarily demote you. All right. What do you mean? Yeah, there's a chat. I mean, it would be easiest, I think, if we just were in the meeting. We missed out. Yeah, so it looks like it's just been rolled over until.
Hello.
Hey, come join the party. Wherever you want, wherever you're most comfortable, honestly, I think that's. Your call. So. I've got Nick doing the participant attendees and all of that, so wherever you're most comfortable handling tip amendments, I'm good with that. Cool. All right, now I'm kind of set up. So Nick, are you able to?
Yeah, so I see, we have 3 panelists, 1 attendees. I guess when someone comes, it'll pop up, but.
So it automatically makes them an attendee.
Okay, cool.
An
So we just
attendee-
have to promote the TCC members from 2 panelists.
Right, and I'd say like any DOT folks do, so.
Our usual folks.
Yeah, Troy is definitely a panelist. But yeah, it's just, I mean, I think it's kind of obvious, but just to be clear, the panelists can talk and do anything they want, pretty much, but attendees, we either have to promote to a panelist to let them speak, or if you hover over their name or phone number, there's a button that says like allow to speak, which sounds a bit authoritarian.
Yeah.
But
Does that allow them, like, it allows them to speak until you remute them? Like it kind of just unlocks them, I'm guessing, until.
yeah, I think so. It would be nice if there were like an automatic timer.
Yeah, right. Cut them off. Does it, is it harder for people to come in on their phones. I saw your comment about it's easier to join by desktop. That's
It's-
unfortunate.
It's absolute, because I mean, like, if someone comes in via phone, they're just gonna be an attendee. And then, you know, we don't know if they're a TCC member or a member of the public who wants to give comment,
Yeah,
because they're muted.
Right.
And they can't comment in the chat box, so.
man, there's trade-offs with all this.
Yeah, but I've asked Emily to handle the public comment part.
Cool.
So that should be off your plate and on Emily's plate. Thanks, Emily.
Emily, where are you? Is she there?
I'm here. I just don't want anybody to see my face today.
Oh, you're there as in like,
In the
At
same
the
room as
office.
Tristan.
okay.
The other side of the room. Nick, how's Seattle looking?
So mom came in and we went down to Packwood near Mount Rainier. And it's been awesome, but they're also having record heat here right now. So that's been interesting,
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
but it's beautiful. It's nice to be in a cabin with, shower, actual bed, all these nice things.
That sounds pretty good. Yeah, my sister's, I guess her house is somewhere in Tacoma.
Oh, right.
I haven't been out there since they moved, but it sounds like they're like right on the water and nice and cool. So she's been gloating to me about how much cooler it is at her house versus the rest of the area, which, you know.
They found a good property clearly. And
Yeah, great for them.
Hey, Tristan.
Hey, Stefan.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm in my office now, so I'm testing my microphone just to make sure it works on my headphones.
Oh, nice.
Nick, you got any fires burning around out there where you are?
I had like over 2 weeks of it out in Montana. Even in Salt Lake, it was intense there, but Montana was great, but man, it was smoky up in Glacier, and Missoula was really cool. But then I finally just took a day where I drove just 8 hours just to get out of the fires in Washington. It's like, whoa, I can breathe again. Biking felt good. They're no joke out here, but I mean, at the same time, I was hearing y'all were experiencing it too, so not much different.
Good morning, folks.
Morning. Manual. Jody, I'm trying to bring you in as a panelist so you can talk here, but it's not letting me.
Hey, Autumn.
Hey, how are you?
Not too bad. This is our first not practice meeting with the webinars setting. So hopefully it goes without a kink.
It's okay. I remember what my was, and we did try to practice, and it still was trial and error. So it's okay.
That's I think that's where we're at as a world right now. So.
Looks like we're still 3 from quorum. Once we get there, I can screen share. Still down to 1 screen. All right, looks like to me we do have quorum.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Thanks everybody for joining for the August TCC. Before we get started, I wanted to let Emily give just a brief announcement on public comment, just in case anyone out there would like to provide any comment today and just the general procedures on how we're going to handle that.
All right. I just want to explain the public input protocol. We've set up our meeting in a new format to prevent from virtual threats, which alters the way that we're going to be holding public comment periods. So as a reminder, there will be 2 opportunities to share public comment, one at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end. If you're interested in making public comment, please either email the mpo@landofsky.org with your name and the subject public comment August. And if that doesn't work, then you can also send a direct message to me, which I'm listed as a co-host, so it should be easy to find my name with your full name. We just want to make sure that everyone is able to make public comment if they want to. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Emily. Autumn, take it away.
Yep. So welcome everybody to the meeting today. First thing we need to do since we're back virtual is go through the roll call. Tristan, are you doing that or is Emily going to go through that?
I'll ask Nick if you could go through the roll call today. You're muted, Nick.
Muted, sorry. I may have stopped screen sharing to do that. Give me a second. Dun, dun, dun. Hold on. All right, from the top, Dan Bechtold, City of Asheville.
Here.
Jessica Morris, Asheville Regional Transit. Harry Buckner, Biltmore Forest. Jessica Trotman, Black Mountain.
Here.
Daniel Sellers, TPD.
I'm here.
Mike Dawson, FHWA.
Right here.
Peyton O'Connor, Buncombe County. William High, Mountain Mobility.
Present.
Nick Schroyer, Town of Canton. Joy Garland, Clyde. Pat Christie, Village of Flat Rock. Eric Rufa, Town of Fletcher.
Here.
Jody Ferguson, Haywood County. I think Jody is here, just on audio. Cole Sutton, Haywood Transit. Autumn Radcliffe, Henderson County.
Here.
Jana Bianculli, Apple Country Transit.
Here.
Matt Manley, City of Hendersonville. Christopher Todd, Laurel Park. Daniel Metcalf, Madison County.
Here.
Ron Hancock, Maggie Valley. Nathan Bennett, Mars Hill. Daniel Cobb, Mills River. Alex Carmichael, Town of Montreat. Vicky Eastland, Land Sky RPO. Elizabeth Teague, Town of Waynesville. James Eller, Town of Weaverville. Adrian Eisenhower, Town of Woodfin.
Here.
Brendan Merrithew, Division 13.
Here.
Steve Williams, Division 14.
Here.
That's all good.
Okay, we're at our first point for public comments. Emily, it looks like you've only got like 3 attendees on the other side. Are they supposed to raise their hand, did you say, if they wanted to make public comment?
They're supposed to message me. I haven't
Message
received
you.
anything yet.
No messages? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. All right, well, we'll move on to our consent agenda, which is approval of the June 2021 minutes. Is there a motion to approve that?
Jana Bianculli, I move to approve agenda and minutes.
Thank you.
Second,
Who was the
Peyton
second?
O'Connor.
Thank
Peyton
you,
O'Connor.
Peyton. All right, so Nick, if you want to take us back through roll call for that.
All right, a little bit quicker this time. Dan Bechtold, City of Asheville.
Aye.
Jessica Morris, Asheville Regional Transit. Harry Buckner, Biltmore Forest. Jessica Trotman, Town of Black Mountain.
Aye.
Daniel Sellers, TPD.
Aye.
Peyton O'Connor, Buncombe County.
Aye.
William High, Mountain Mobility.
Approve.
Nick Schroyer, Town of Canton. Joy Garland, Clyde. Pat Christie, Flat Rock. Eric Rufa, Town of Fletcher.
Aye.
Jody Ferguson, Haywood County. Cole Sutton, Haywood Transit. Autumn Radcliffe, Henderson County.
Aye.
Jana Bianculli, Apple Country Transit.
Aye.
Matt Manley, City of Hendersonville. Christopher Todd, Town of Laurel Park. Daniel Metcalf, Madison County.
Aye.
Ron Hancock, Maggie Valley. Nathan Bennett, Mars Hill. Daniel Cobb, Town of Mills River. Alex Carmichael, Village of Montreat. Vicky Eastland, Land Sky RPO. Elizabeth Teague, Town of Waynesville. James Eller, Weaverville. Adrian Eisenhower, Town of Woodfin.
Aye.
Brendan Merrithew, NCDOT Division 13.
Aye.
Steve Williams, NCDOT Division 14.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to our business items. The first thing we have is the regional transit plan recommendations. I believe this is an update from last time.
That's correct, and I will hand it off to Emily on our staff to go through just a quick summary. Just to note, we talked about the general recommendations for the regional transit plan At our last meeting, the TCC recommended that the recommendations move forward to the board. At the board meeting, we did receive, we had, I'd say, a very good discussion. I think overall, some of the things that we heard were that, you know, there's interest in the recommendations, but there's some hesitancy on moving forward with those recommendations relatively quickly. So today we do have the full report. Emily will give a summary on that, and the staff recommendation is to recommend accepting the report at this point.
All right. So thank you guys for joining. And as Tristan mentioned, we did go over this last month, but today staff is seeking a recommendation from this body to the board for acceptance of the study as an official planning document. The board will have two options for a resolution. The first that I just mentioned, to accept the study as a planning document, and the second to accept the study and approve implementation, which involves securing funding. Regional transit, as you know, has been an identified need in the planning area since 2000. And this study was approved in 2018 and completed in fiscal year 21 with the help of our consultant team. As our area features extensive urban sprawl, housing costs are rising, and our population grows, more people are moving away from urban centers. And in the midst of employers struggling to retain employees and lower income groups moving out of urban centers, it can be assumed that a lot of people are moving to areas that are inaccessible to employment by transit. And these shifts are altering commute patterns. In this graph, you can see how since 2002, the percentage of workers who live and work in the same county has been declining. A recent study published in Smartest Dollar ranked Asheville as the 7th mid-sized city in renter wage gaps. In other words, someone needs to earn about $21.58 an hour in order to afford rent in a one-bedroom in Asheville. But the hourly wage for most Asheville renters is estimated to be somewhere around $11.34, leaving our wage gap as negative 47.5%. So as the number of workers living and working in the same county is declining, commute patterns from surrounding counties into Buncombe have been increasing. Since 2002, 7,000 more people moved from Henderson County to Buncombe County. 2,500 more people are moving from Haywood County to Buncombe County on a daily basis. And 1,000 more commuters go from Madison to Buncombe County. So considering the number of workers that are living and working in the same county declining and the number of commuters from outside counties into Buncombe County increasing, it can again be assumed that people are crossing county lines to access jobs. The map here shows existing transit services with each color representing a different fixed route system. And as you can see, there's very little overlap in these systems as it is now. The growth projections that we have for our region also indicate that we'll have about 185,000 more new residents in the next 25 years. And it can also be assumed that established demographic shifts and commuting trends will continue. Which brings us to a reiteration of the Regional Transit Feasibility Study's final recommendations. The consultant recommended a regional transit service that includes fixed route, demand response, carpool, and microtransit. Because our region is composed of rural, small, and mid-sized communities, tailoring transit to fit the region's needs is important. There are also 4 proposed regional express routes, one to the north, east, south, and west, which cross county lines in order to connect people to employment centers. It's recommended that the north and south routes get started first, followed by the east and west routes, all running smaller transit vehicles and operating at 3 different times, morning, afternoon, and evening. These recommendations were selected following public input and steering committee meetings. In order to supplement that regional service, the final recommendations also include that a regional agency include van pool, microtransit, and integration of other services. The next part of the consultant's recommendation included governance. These recommendations were formed after peer study analysis, conversations with the steering committee, and meetings with the work group, which was comprised of elected officials. The governance recommendation described how the consultant deemed regional transit could be most effectively and efficiently be structured. Intergovernmental agreements can designate a single operator for regional service and allow municipalities to negotiate terms. IGAs also create an opportunity for consolidation. However, this structure relies heavily on one agency, thus limiting the control that other agencies might have. IGAs also have much more limited funding opportunities. Another path that could be taken in establishing a regional service is to create new enabling legislation. HART and Go Triangle are two entities that are structured this way. New legislation allows for the authority to have flexibility in designating their powers. However, it's a time-consuming and political process. So the recommendation from the consultant was to utilize existing legislation, which is also known as Article 25, to avoid potential political problems, allow for existing agencies to maintain their independence while the new service remains accountable to the region. This structure is currently utilized by WRPTA in Burke County, Intercounty Public Transportation Agency near Elizabeth City, and Care Area Transportation Authority on the coast. The implementation process for utilizing existing legislation to create a regional transportation authority involves securing startup funding, building consensus, determining funds and getting approval, negotiating and executing agreements, forming a board of trustees, and then beginning service. And just as a summary, to more clearly see why the consultant recommended using existing legislation, in addition to having more funding opportunities and not requiring legislative action, it's a process that allows for local autonomy and is less lengthy than new legislation. The consultant also proposed 3 different funding packages, recommending funding package 3 as their primary recommendation. Each package kind of builds on the other. So the recommended package utilizes existing funds from NCDOT and FTA, also creates a vehicle registration fee and vehicle rental fee, and adds a new sales tax. In this slide, you can see what the estimated revenue would be for adding a vehicle registration fee, a vehicle rental fee, and a sales tax. So at the end of the day, funding package 3 would produce around $19.4 million in total new revenue if we opted for a 1/4 cent sales tax, $5 vehicle registration fee, and a 1/4 cent rental fee. And while this is the recommended funding package, a regional transit authority would ultimately cost less than $4 million. And if we only focused on phase 1, it would cost less than $3 million. So the funding package recommended would more than cover the required amount of money to get this up and running, and could leave the region with additional funds for other efforts. And this leaves us with the real question: is this worth it? This question arises when any new public service is proposed. The process of forming these recommendations included public input, which determined that transportation is something that is both needed and wanted on a regional level. Ultimately, we're all doing our best with what we have. And right now we have a lot of opportunity to create inclusive and accessible regional transit. One of the survey questions asked participants to consider their transit priorities, and the top 3 answers involved regional transit, expanding service to more areas, improving access to destinations, and creating direct connections between destinations across counties. When asked about public investment, the first response was to increase frequency within local systems. And the second, third, and fourth answers involved regional service, which I think is important to note that a regional service could also free up some local money. For example, the Route 170 to Black Mountain would be able to be run by a regional transit authority instead of how it's currently set up. And these are just a snapshot of some survey responses that we received to further point to how regional transit service has initial public interest and support. The information for our region specifically and its needs for regional transit can also be supplemented by other benefits. A regional transit authority can lead to expanded funding opportunities, streamlined services, which saves money and potential service redundancies in the future. And research shows that for every dollar invested in public transit, $4 in economic returns are generated. It's also safer to travel by transit than single occupancy vehicles. And transit has been a big draw for especially millennials moving to new cities. And just as a further note on the benefits of regional transit, economies of scale refer to the cost savings that result from increased production. And in this case, a regional authority could, again, eliminate redundancies and free up local money that currently goes towards other services. Regional transit also offers the potential consolidation for services or systems that are struggling. It also increases accessibility to jobs and can create a commute experience where you can do other things while sitting in traffic. From lower costs of car ownership and vehicle maintenance to lower crash and emission costs, regional transit also produces cost savings. And one of the coolest things, in my opinion, about transit is that it touches many different areas of life. Audre Lorde said that there is no single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives. The factors that have led to regional transit are also interconnected. Ultimately, investing in transit is an investment in the people that we need and the people who need the service. If our next steps are taken wisely, ridership will be a byproduct of the creation of a system that has good access and options. So the first step in this is to accept the regional transit feasibility study as an official planning document, and then follow the consultant's proposed recommendations for implementation. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you.
So Tristan, do you need anything else from TCC? I know we've already made our recommendation and sent it on. So was this just for informational purposes, or is there anything else you need?
I think today we're looking for a recommendation to accept the report. I think that given the board's comments, just accepting the report doesn't necessarily mean that these are things that will be implemented or attempted to be implemented right away.
This is Jana. If you give a suggested motion to the MPO board that says exactly what they need to say, it may be helpful. But I will go ahead and make the motion to accept the plan and recommend accepting it to the MPO board.
Okay, is there a second or any comments from anyone?
I just had one question. If the plan does go to the next step of the MPO board said, we want to implement this, who would be leading those initial steps and how would that part be funded?
Sure. I think there's kind of a variety of ways for that to go. I think all in all, it would really require a champion, especially at the elected official level, to start pushing for this. I think all in all, to kind of try to paraphrase an exchange we had with a Citizens Advisory Committee member, this is a very high level plan that gives a very kind of broad vision, but gives a lot of different ways for it to move forward. The funding package that Emily went through, I'd say is more like a menu than needing to get all of that to happen. So I think that if there's a champion that really wants to push a route or the whole system, we can start talking about building regional consensus, and that can either be something that's built into the MPO's planning work program, either for staff or to hire a consultant for, or it can be something that local governments work together and put into their work programs.
Okay, thanks.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? So we've still got just a motion on the floor. We still need a second.
I'll second. This is Dan.
Thank you, Dan. All right, is Nick going to take us through roll call again?
I can do that.
Nick?
Dan Bechtold, City of Asheville.
Aye.
Jessica Morris, Asheville Regional Transit. Harry Buckner, Biltmore Forest. Jessica Trotman, Town of Black Mountain,
Aye.
Daniel Sellers, TPD,
Aye.
Peyton O'Connor, Buncombe County,
Aye.
William High, Mountain Mobility,
Approve.
Nick Schroyer, Town of Canton, Joy Garland, Village of Clyde, Pat Christie, Village of Flat Rock, Eric Rufa, Town of Fletcher,
Aye.
Jody Ferguson, Haywood County, Cole Sutton, Haywood Transit, Autumn Radcliffe, Henderson County,
Aye.
Jana Bianculli, Apple Country Transit,
Aye.
Matt Manley, City of Hendersonville, Christopher Todd, Town of Laurel Park, Daniel Metcalf, Madison County,
Aye.
Ron Hancock, Maggie Valley, Nathan Bennett, Town of Mars Hill, Daniel Cobb, Mills River,
Aye.
Alex Carmichael, Montreat, Vicky Eastland, Landisky RPO, Elizabeth Teague, Waynesville, James Eller, Town of Weaverville, Adrian Eisenhower, Town of Woodfin,
Aye.
Brendan Merrithew, NCDOT Division 13,
Aye.
Steve Williams, Division 14.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right. Next item we have is amendments to the 2020-2029 TIP.
Great. Before I hand things off to John for that, I just wanted to give a big thank you to everyone, especially on the steering committee for the regional transit plan. As I won't go through all the names, but I think a lot of the input given at the meetings as well as on the draft plan has been extremely helpful to that whole effort. So thank you all. And with that, I will hand things off to John Rideout to go through the proposed amendments to the TIP.
Good morning, all. Before you, we have changes proposed to the highway projects as well as our lab projects. They're kind of broken up. There's going to be 3 different types of primary amendments, and finally, there'll be also a transit amendment at the end. The first type of amendments before you are primarily looking at 2 projects as far as, actually, I walk that back, 3 within the highway program. One, there's going to be the amendment to add a project program for preliminary engineering to replace a bridge on I-40 over State Route 1513. There's the funding source and our future dates hasn't been defined yet. That's one item that would be B5541. Next would be U5783. This would be US 64 Brevard Road in between Blythe Street and White Pine. This is actually just a delay for additional planning and design and right-of-way acquisition, which is moving from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 22. Likewise, a request for additional time for planning and design and right-of-way construction is also available for Patton Avenue and New Leicester Highway. Those would be the 2 delays. And then finally, there are a couple of various safety improvements across both Division 13 and Division 14. These were highway safety improvement program funding allocations and set amounts for fiscal year 22 through 23. And that will round out the highway amendments. The next amendments available would be twofold for the LAP project, where you have, sorry, let me scroll down. There we go. You have the Town Branch Greenway. It's an additional, it's one of those that's trying to allow for additional time for right-of-way construction. It's moving funds from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 22. And then finally, we have the Black Mountain Greenway, which we are separating into 2 different segments. One from the Oaks Trail to Black Mountain Avenue, and then from Black Mountain Avenue to the Flat Creek Greenway. So we've discussed this segmenting of the Greenway in previous ones. This is just providing it within the TIP amendments. Are there any questions to what has been presented thus far?
I have a question. This is Jessica.
Yes.
So the other section, I think that we were calling it A,
Mhm.
the council voted to make the endpoints of that from the intersection of Broadway or NC9 and Sutton Avenue to Black Mountain Avenue. We reduced those endpoints, and the section north of there to Flat Creek Greenway is being done out of our general fund.
Okay. I will see to those corrections.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions or comments?
Okay, John, do you have anything else?
No, I do not. Do you want to handle? Emily will handle the transit amendments.
It's however you want to do this. Are you going to
And
put
this is
this?
just
I
an
I'm assuming
update.
you-
We voted to approve the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan measures in, I believe, our June meeting for the board. But another part of the requirement is that they're incorporated into both the MTP and TIP. So today, the TIP amendments also include the incorporation of our PTAS measures.
Okay. So that is for all the amendments that John and Emily just presented, and you need an action for us to recommend approval to the board. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments, or someone want to make a motion?
This is Peyton O'Connor. I'll make a motion to approve the recommended changes with the corrections presented.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Dan Bechtold, second.
Okay. Nick, are you getting stuck with having to do this every time? Hey, if it helps you, Nick, you could just read out the names of the folks present
That
at
sounds
the
good.
meeting that makes quorum.
Yep, I'm good with that. All right, this might be our last one too. Dan Bechtold, City of Asheville.
Aye.
Jessica Trotman, Town of Black Mountain.
Aye.
Daniel Sellers, TPD.
Aye.
Peyton O'Connor, Buncombe County.
Aye.
William High, Mountain Mobility.
Approve.
Eric Rufa, Town of Fletcher.
Aye.
Jody Ferguson, Haywood County. Autumn Radcliffe, Henderson County.
Aye.
Jana Bianculli, Apple Country.
Aye.
Daniel Metcalf, Madison County.
Aye.
Daniel Cobb, Town of Mills River.
Aye.
Adrian Eisenhower, Town of Woodfin. Brendan Merrithew, NCDOT, Division 13.
Aye.
Steve Williams, Division 14.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right, the next item we have is TCC time and date of our meetings.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick overview on this. So we conducted a survey a couple of months ago about what would be the preferred time and date for these meetings, and whether or not there would be a better time or date that would work better for everybody. And all in all, I think to sum up the results we saw, the majority of people said the current date and time works the best. About 65% said that was the ideal time for them. 30% said it could be better, and the last 5% said they have an ongoing conflict and would be able to attend more, potentially with a different time and date. The closest runner-up was second Thursdays at 9 a.m. I would say all in all, the 9 a.m. Times that we provided were fairly popular. And the 5:30 p.m. options, you all did not seem to enjoy very much. It got a comment that I believe was all caps with more than a couple of exclamation marks saying, please no evening meetings. So we thought this was just a good time to hear input from you all on what might work better. So maybe we don't get in the way of lunchtime too much. But I think, you know, we have the results, and just want to hear if there's anything you all would like to change in our schedule.
And I'm just gonna,
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry. Oh, it's okay. I was just gonna open it up for comments. So go ahead.
I was gonna ask Tristan if you think we're gonna be virtual only for, oh, I guess you can't predict the future, but does it seem like our next meeting will probably be virtual only?
You know, the MPO does not maintain an epidemiologist on staff, but I would say that I think, yeah, there's a good chance the next meeting will be virtual. You know, I think all of us had a good 6-week period where things were looking pretty good, and it's a real bummer to have that change. So we'll keep coordinating with Autumn and William about what they think would be best for the TCC, and I think we'll take it 1 month at a time for now.
I might suggest that then to keep, like right now, the timing works, I think, better because it's virtual. When we're in person, I don't like the 11 o'clock because it's just, it kind of just messes up the whole day. Driving to Asheville and staying for 2 hours and then driving back. So maybe when we kind of know more, if we're going to be back in person fully, that might be a good time to discuss again.
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, I think that point is something we've heard from a few people, that especially the further you are from Asheville, the harder this meeting can be in terms of how much time it can take up when you have to be there in person. So trying to be sensitive to that, and again, not getting in the way of lunch, I think is another goal we should be going for. I will note, I spoke with Pat Christie of Flat Rock yesterday. She did mention that her council meetings are at 9:30. And so she noted that for her, it would be better to move it further back if we were to keep it on the same date rather than move it forward.
Yeah, I'll say I don't think she's the only one. I think several of the small towns may meet normally at this time, Thursday mornings at 9:30. I don't know if anyone has any comments. I mean, we can leave it like it is for now, like Jana suggested, and talk about it at another point, or maybe narrow it down to if we want to stick with this Thursday, same time every month, and we have a different time, maybe just put that out there, propose the new time, and see how many, if it would work or not work on that. But it's whatever you want to do, Tristan.
Yeah, that sounds fine. I think we can do a follow-up, and Autumn, I'll coordinate with you on what would be an appropriate time to send that out, especially if it looks like we might be able to shift more to in-person.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, if there's no other comments on this, we will move on to our informational items. First thing we have is prioritization, P6.
Yeah, so This is mainly to follow up from an email I sent, I believe, towards the end of July or early August. But we wanted to give you all a update on what's going on with this round of prioritization. And all in all, it's not the happiest story. I think last meeting we had a slide that just had a frowning face on it to sum up what's going on with the funding situation. So we'll get a little bit more into that today. There's some information in your agenda packet. Nick, if you wouldn't mind, I've got a couple of brief slides to go through. Thanks. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so all in all, just to go over some of the basics, prioritization, where is that in the planning process? Prioritization is basically what determines what long-range planned projects go from conceptual to actually funded and scheduled. It's a process that's relatively unique in North Carolina, meaning it's a data-driven, transparent process that was established in 2012 through the Strategic Transportation Investments Act. Just a side note, there are several other states that are now adopting similar processes on how they develop their STIPs. But all in all, the summary is this process is here to program future year revenues and figure out what projects are most important. However, the key thing there is that it looks at projected revenues and assigns projects to the available funding. However, as we've talked about in the past, the projects that have already been committed in previous rounds of prioritization, we've seen those costs go up and then up some more. NCDOT recently went through a process to update all of their cost estimates on committed projects, and the results came in July. So this information was plugged into the prioritization process and how much projected revenues there would be for P 6.0. All in all, it didn't paint a pretty picture. In statewide mobility, that tier is over budgeted by over $2 billion through 2033. For regional impact, every single regional tier was over budget. Our regional tier specifically, I would say, is one of the most troubling in the state. We are close to $1 billion over the budget for through 2033. And just to note, the regional funding is distributed based on population, and our region has the second smallest population and therefore the second smallest budget. Division needs is a little bit different. There are some divisions that have available funding. However, our region, divisions 13 and division 14, those are both over budget. And so the prioritization work group at the state level met and discussed what do you do with a round of prioritization when there's limited to no projected funding available for that round of prioritization. You know, generally we kind of break it out into 4 simple steps of how you get through a prioritization cycle. You submit projects. We did that, I believe 2 years ago now. The MPO as well as NCDOT divisions submitted projects that we worked with you all to determine what would be best to be considered for funding. Those projects have gone through. The quantitative scoring is still in process. There's a lot of interest, especially at the work group, to be able to evaluate how the quantitative scores worked out and the changes that were made between cycles. But all in all, the work group recommended that at this point, going through the local input point process would not be recommended, and that new projects submitted for P 6.0 will not be programmed in this round. So all in all, I think as long as the projected revenue picture is kind of as grim as it looks right now, that's going to be what's moving forward. The one thing to note, however, is that per federal requirements, a draft or a new STIP is still required to be created every 4 years, whether that includes new projects or not. So the last STIP that was adopted, the 2020 through 2029 STIP, that needs to be updated, and a 2024 through 2033 STIP needs to be released. Obviously, there's still time to develop and update that. But a lot of, I think the discussions at the state level moving forward are going to be, how do we develop that STIP? Obviously, this is a bit different from what's happened in the past. We aren't taking new projects and putting them in the queue. I think it's going to be more of a process of reshuffling what's already committed. And so a lot of those discussions that'll take place with MPOs, RPOs, NCDOT divisions, and several others. They're going to continue to meet. We have a follow-up meeting next week to talk about next steps. But all in all, there's still work to be done. But obviously this is quite a disappointment. We submitted a lot of projects. I know that a lot of the projects that were selected by our local governments that we worked with you all on, they have a lot of community support and a lot of people with hopes and aspirations attached to them. So, you know, I think moving forward, there's going to be a lot of work on kind of what's going on with the already committed projects. NCDOT is going through a few processes on trying to reevaluate costs of projects and where they can cut down on some of those costs, and we'll be working with them on that. But all in all, this is where we're at with this round of prioritization. I think unless something changes quite a bit in the revenue realm, that's going to be how things move forward. That is my not so fun update. Are there any questions or comments at this point?
That was like the transportation version of The Walking Dead, Tristan. I don't appreciate what you did to my Thursday morning there.
I gave up on The Walking Dead after like season 3, so I'm hoping that's I hope the latter seasons got a bit more optimistic, but my apologies.
Tristan, this is Eric and Fletcher. Just a very general question. I realize that federal infrastructure bill is nothing more than a pipe dream at this point. That's still got a long way to go up in Washington, but is there any chance that could be, you know, shotgun blasted around the country and the various state programs? And if so, would it not be worth it for the prioritization process to continue just in case of that?
So I think that's a really good question. And I think the devil's kind of going to be in the details there. The infrastructure bill, I'd say, is more than a pipe dream at this point. It did go through the Senate, and the funding that would be allocated to North Carolina is pretty considerable, more than $7 billion. I believe, as it's currently written, would go towards highway programs in North Carolina, as well as other parts of infrastructure programs that would get an infusion as well. I think all in all, though, the I believe it's about $7.3 billion that's estimated to go towards North Carolina's highway programs.
What's that?
To put that in kind of perspective, the cost increases that NCDOT just received add up to a net increase of about $7.5 billion in increased costs for their already committed projects. So it's a big hole that I think the department is in right now in the long term of things. And obviously, I think a federal infrastructure bill will go a long way towards filling it. I think it is a kind of an open question of is that going to bring us back to where we were a year or two ago, or is it going to just kind of mitigate a bit of the hole that we're in?
Okay, does anyone else have any comments? Okay, we'll move on to the next item because you don't need anything on that one, right?
No, just information.
Okay, next thing is an update on the proposed amendments to the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the new I-26 interchange.
Okay, so we just wanted to give you all a quick update from the discussion we had in June. First things first, it's on the cover of your page. Initially, the MPO was requested to amend our MTP to include this interchange in June. Since then, that request has kind of eased. So it moved from June or August, and now I think it's a bit more open-ended. So one thing we've discussed with our board chair, Mark Gibbs, and other folks at NCDOT and a couple of other board members is that probably the best route at this time is to hold off on a vote until more is known about the project's budget. A kind of key thing there is that there is a provision in the state budget right now that allocates $30 million from the Department of Commerce towards the interchange. That would likely alleviate the kind of hit that the division needs bucket would take, or potentially make it so that no division needs funding would be needed. Can you guys hear me again? All right, sorry about that. Long story short, before I freeze again, I think the general strategy is going to be, let's wait and see what happens with the state budget, because a lot of the concerns that we've heard are that using division needs funding for this project may impact other projects. And that's something that gives a lot of board members discomfort. And so state budget passes, I think those concerns are alleviated. If it doesn't, well, this interchange has to find some money to actually happen. Just to go through really quick the information that we provided to the board, going through some of the specifics on where this interchange would be located, and the Pratt & Whitney site associated with the project. So this is right by the interchange with the Arboretum and the bridge being built. It is part of the Pratt & Whitney project that's going into that site on Biltmore Farms property. There is generally, as we heard from Tim Love in June, this is a very, very big economic development project. I believe he stated it's the largest in North America at this time. And so it is a big, big project that's coming in that Buncombe County has worked with them on. And so again, it's located between 191 and I-26, between the French Broad River and the Blue Ridge Parkway. But one of the important things to point out is that there's roughly 500 acres of developable property around this site, and the Pratt and Whitney property accounts for 100 of those acres. So this is very likely to be a fairly large development in the future. And so this isn't just talking about how do we have transportation access to the Pratt and Whitney site, but how we have transportation access to this area, as well as connectivity for our regional network. Just to point out, the way we've tried to show this. So in the green is an access road that's been funded through Golden Leaf and Biltmore Farms. That's already under construction, as well as the bridge across the French Broad River. The interchange project on the right, that would connect over to that access road, providing access to Pratt and Whitney, but also providing access across to 191. Another thing that we've talked about is the planned widening of NC 191. The current construction date for that is out in 2030, but this is generally an area where there are a lot of needs that have already been identified. So in terms of transportation merits, as staff sees it, there's the improvement in east-west connectivity with a new route between NC 191 and I-26. The project could essentially provide a relief valve between exit 33 and exit 37. We'll talk a bit more about that in a second. Providing better emergency access to the site and greater area. Overall, this is anticipated to be a high growth area for Buncombe County and the region. The land use projections and socioeconomic projections we went through about a year ago, this is one of the areas that really kind of lit up for growth. And one thing to point out is avoiding over-reliance on NC 191. Daniel, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think as some of the traffic forecasts are being developed, I think that what they found is without this project being built, there's versus the interchange being built, there's roughly about a 10,000 volume difference between how much traffic would be put onto 191 versus how much could be relieved from that corridor with this project. So think about it in terms of if there's no interchange, these 500 acres of developable property will be reliant upon 191 to move all of their traffic. With I-26, they then have an option of either taking 191 or I-26. So again, in terms of the site, one of the key things is that this is a pretty large gap between interchanges, the Long Shoals Road and the 191 interchanges. It's about 4 miles. Where the proposed interchange would be exit 35, roughly the midway point. And I don't think I really need to tell anyone, but this is a stretch of I-26 where we have flagged it as unreliable. I won't go through what these numbers mean exactly, but based on some of the travel time data that we've pulled, this section, looking at eastbound and westbound, they account for 2 of the 3 most unreliable sections of interstate in our region. So again, going back to that relief valve, we see that as a real merit to this project. And so again, that is something that could help in the cases of crashes or large traffic events, having an area for commuters to pull off and take an alternative route. And just really quickly, in terms of connectivity, what we've talked about in the past, there's a study that asked what mitigates congestion better, ultra dense development or more distributed sprawl development. And the study said neither. It's really about roadway connectivity. That's one of the big things that helps to mitigate congestion. However, on the funding side of things, I think one thing that we've talked about a lot is that as of right now, this project has $10 million committed and has an estimated cost of between 25 and 35 million. So there are some unknowns in terms of full funding for this project. Where those 10 million come from are generally from the division needs tier as of right now. That is the Division 13 division needs tier. Just to point out in terms of what's really in that division needs budget, it's projects from prioritization. It's also the MPO's DA funds are required to be accounted for in this budget, as well as kind of this economic development pot. And those are the 10 million that are being applied to the interchange. The division needs budget overall is roughly $50 million a year. And so with this economic development funding, there is a $10 million cap on any single project. That is something written into law. It's in the Strategic Transportation Investments Act. There's a limit for how much can be spent statewide as well. But just to point out, NCDOT can put $10 million on this project. They can't just open it up and fully fund the project with state funds without some kind of change in law. Other grants can be applied, but not from something that would be accounted for in the division needs tier. And a little bit on that, the Division 13 tier, that's more than just Buncombe County. In our MPO, that's Buncombe and Madison, but it includes other counties in Hickory MPO, Isothermal RPO, and the High Country RPO. The projects we have in the division needs tier that are already committed are listed here, but also projects outside of the MPO, and there are some fairly large ones. Those are projects that are kind of vying for the same money and scheduling as well. And as we've talked about with the funding issues, with or without this project, a lot of the projects in the division needs tier are being or will be impacted by the generally rising costs. We've seen the project delays last fall already impact them. We, at least as of right now, without a larger infusion of revenues, that's likely to continue. And so in terms of trying to fill that $15 to $25 million gap in the project's budget, right now DOT is looking at ARC funds through the Appalachian Regional Commission, EDA funding, a US DOT RAISE grant, and I think, as we mentioned before, legislative action through the state budget. As of right now, there's $30 million in the Senate and now the House budget that's moving forward. And so from my point of view, a lot of this project kind of hinges on what happens at the state budget. And just to note, for this MTP amendment, we do have a project being removed. That's the 280 project. And to note, that's a project that's not currently being considered for funding. It's not funded. It is very far out in the MTP process. If the state budget were to pass with projects or with funding committed to the interchange, we may not have to remove this project from the MTP. So moving forward, at some point, the MPO board will be asked to either approve the interchange and put it in the MTP. In that case, work continues. What we've been told is no delays are anticipated from NCDOT if approved relatively soon. If the interchange is rejected, FHWA would not permit a new interchange without the project being included in the MTP. So all in all, that's where we're at with this project. And I think overall our strategy again is to kind of wait on the state budget, see what happens there, and then take it to the MPO board to vote, assuming the budget passes relatively soon. So that's the update I have for you all today. I think with the board will be a little more brief, but this is just informational today. Are there any questions or comments at this point?
Okay, I don't hear any comments, so thank you, Tristan. We'll move into our regular updates, NCDOT Division 13.
Hey, thank you. This is Brendan. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm having some connectivity issues, so I may cut out, but I'll try to just knock these out. Going with the construction updates, we've got work continues on the I-4700 project. The main focus now, the contractor is working on expanding the eastbound lanes. They're going to accommodate a traffic shift that'll be later in the fall, with both westbound and eastbound travel on the east side while they work on then the west side. And then the other update I have is for Brevard Road interchange. Their contractors doing some of the last concrete work and other finishing work. I'm not sure what y'all have been seeing out there lately, but that should wrap up by the end of the year. I know it's been a long time, but hopefully that will be complete very soon. And that's all the construction updates I have, unless anybody has a specific question. I can move on project development side. All right, I'm going to start with, I know that an entire list has been provided. I'm going to skip through a little bit, but in order. U5782, I'm sorry, U5832 down there. The NC81 Swannanoa River Road companion piece is also U6046. We've been have some communication with the city of Asheville, and we're working on the NCDOT is managing a feasibility study on that project. I know the let date for that one is out quite a ways, but still want to, I think it was mentioned earlier, some of the issues that we're having with STIP, and we want to stay on top of some of these projects and make sure that the purpose need are being adhered to, and we're constantly looking at them to make sure costs are updated correctly. And so this is part of that effort also to make sure if and when we can move forward on this, we're all aligned with what we want to see from this project. I'm going to skip on to U2801A. That would be on the next page of this list. And that is Sweeten Creek improvements. That's been an on again, off again project. Currently, it has been suspended again. I think it's a couple months now that preliminary engineering work has been suspended. We were working toward presenting or getting to a public meeting. If you remember the recent past public meeting, we had sort of an east side widening, a west side widening, and some different options. And we're honing in on potential alignment, and the next step is to go to that public meeting. We were hoping to get there this fall. The project is on hold, but if and when it resumes again, we'll look to start getting that public meeting scheduled. And then, of course, we don't know what format that will take place, whether it's going to be virtual, in person, or how or if that would work. The next one, I-4759 on that same page there, that is the Liberty Road interchange. Just let you know that is currently in right-of-way, still in right-of-way acquisition. That is moving forward. So the schedule you see there should still be in place. I-4409, that's the new interchange on I-40 in Black Mountain. We have recently had some coordination with the town. I want to thank Jessica Trotman. I know you're on this call today. We had a presentation on this past Monday at your meeting, and there was a lot going on at that meeting. Then we had some technical difficulties. We've been talking about whether we're going to be in person or not, and this was a bit of a hybrid. Mike Clark, our project manager, had a presentation ready to go to talk about some changes to the preferred alternative and was unable to be heard, but Jessica stepped in and was able to present that information to the town board, and we appreciate that. We are moving to a slightly different alternative than was originally selected, and there was a utility conflict that looks like it would be very expensive and difficult, if not impossible, to work around. And the other alternative had been, of course, vetted through the public process and functions the same way. There would be some minor differences to it, configuration, but the interchange will still function the same way. And then I-25 13A. That is the A portion of the 26 connector project. That's on the next page. Just a quick update on that there. That is currently undergoing a value engineering study, and this is a process we're incorporating more as a matter of our project development timeline, where we periodically look at a project, whatever stage it's in, whether it's in final design or just been scoped, look to just assess, are there any cost saving measures we can do? And typically it's better if there is some design already done. So I-2513A, that's the traditional design bid build process. Some of the other portions of the connector project are what are called design build, where they're let to a contractor and a design team, and they finish the design after the contract has been let. But the A section, which is really that West Asheville portion from just south of Haywood Road down to the interchange of 240, 40, and 26, primarily that section is in final design now, and it has not been vetted, but AECOM, our design firm, is working on that. And so this assessment is another team, a third engineering firm, just takes the project, looks at it for several days, and looks for ways that costs can be cut. So they look at the design, and a lot of that is with some of the construction elements, whether retaining walls can be used in places, or slopes can change, or that kind of thing. It's not a major overhaul of the project. It's just a high level assessment for cost cutting measures to be taken. U5834, which is on that same page down near the bottom, that's the Mills Gap Road improvements. That is also right of way currently. That schedule also should be the same. I mean, it should be working for us at this point. And those were the main ones. We just talked about the new interchange on 26. So I'm going to leave that as the update unless there are specific questions. And I also wanted to throw out there's a Haywood Road in West Asheville improvement project that is sort of being rolled into our resurfacing, but also has some DA funds. So McCray Coates, I know, who's on this call and has been working to get input from the city and the folks on the Haywood Road, and is also working towards some public involvement for that project. But again, that is limited to the resurfacing, paint, signs, and some of the curb cuts and that kind of thing. So unless there are any questions, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Division 14 updates.
Hey, everybody, this is Steve. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Oh, you can. Okay, good.
We can hear you.
Thanks. All right, so on the construction side of things, kind of the same list that you've been seeing for a while with a few additions. Of course, I-26 still the big news in the Henderson County area for I-26. You're just seeing more drainage work in the median and traffic shifts as we start adding lanes. Most of the bridges and such are complete and open, with the exception of the ones that the detours will be complete towards late fall. You do see that there's a revised completion date there. It's been moved out about 6 months, and those delays are mainly due to the weather, the ongoing thunderstorms and such. Haywood County, really it's just bridge construction projects that are ongoing. The ones that you see both in Haywood and Henderson County on the bridge projects that are 0% just means that they've been let, but they have not been, the construction hasn't started on those yet. Henderson County, the Highland Lake Road project, of course, let, and it has actually started as far as utility relocations and such. Construction of the roadway itself has not started. And also a bridge was added over Mills Creek on Hooper Lane there. The two projects, U5840, U5105, that have been there for a while, just keep in mind that they'll hang out there at that kind of percent complete until vegetation's established, and you have to demonstrate not only have you planted it's come up, but it has to stay there for a while. So they'll be coming off the list within the next couple of months or so. And on the project development side, Again, there's not a whole lot of changes as far as projects that have been added to the move forward list, the ones that we're allowed to work on. If you remember, the let date has to be in fiscal year of 2025. So anything that you see outside of that is on hold. And those dates that you see in where the let date is 2040, those are just out in future years, and that's just the date there is a placeholder. So it technically does not have a let date, but those are all on hold as far as us being able to work on the design on that. And the same thing when you move down into Henderson County. Same projects that we've had on there for a while, and we haven't been able to add any others onto our move forward list from the last time that we met. So it's a very brief update. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer those or get an answer for you.
Just one quick comment. I think one of the bridge projects that's been talked about a lot is the US 19 exit from US 2374. It's a bridge replacement project, kind of in classification, but the improvements being proposed are pretty substantial. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Division 14. I know there's been a lot of questions and meetings about the changes as part of that project. So Steve and your folks, thanks for getting people together and going through the project for them.
And thanks for bringing that up, Tristan. One thing I did want to say about the Russ Avenue project in Haywood County, we have requested acceleration of that project. So trying to get that going prior to those bridge projects, because the bridge projects and Russ Avenue is kind of a 1-2 punch as far as traffic goes. So hopefully if we can get the Russ Avenue project a little further along, then that'll alleviate some of the detour traffic for the bridge project that Tristan's referencing. So thanks for bringing that up, Tristan.
That's a great update. Thank you, Steve. All right, we may have, Autumn, are you still there?
This is Daniel. I think I saw her step away.
Okay, yeah, Daniel, if you could take the way with updates from the Transportation Planning Division.
Yes, so I want to start with the infrastructure bill. I know there's a big discussion coming up about the infrastructure bill. So this is mainly just the numbers, and I know there's lots of policy changes and other things that were in there, and we'll discuss those in due time. As the Senate bill was passed, which of course is not completely signed into law yet, it's about $1.1 trillion, which is 550 in new spending, split around 300 billion for transportation and about 200 billion for other infrastructure like water, sewer, electric. These numbers add up to 300 billion almost. The only thing I left out was about 20 billion in financing, like TIFA money, state bank money, and revolving loan funds like that. And then the other half of the transportation bill, the other 500 billion, is the reauthorization of the Highway Trust Fund Fast Act through 2026 and the taxes through 2028. I did not know this before, but I don't know why the taxes are authorized longer than spending. But we'll discuss all that, I'm sure, quite thoroughly over the next couple months as things are actually finalized. Quick safety update is, of course, if you're so lucky that your schools may be starting back, just a quick reminder about the different programs the Safer After School program has, including active routes, safety curriculums, walking back to school days, and just funding for safety improvements around schools. Short line railroad grants that went out. I've mentioned this before as a source of funding, but the freight rail safety crossing improvement program every year tries to improve either intersections and bridges where railroads and roads meet to make the two operate more amicably. $10 million just went out, and a large chunk of that is to the region, to the Blue Ridge Southern Railroad for projects in Bumpkin, Henderson, Haywood, and Jackson. And of course, right over the border, another $2 million for improvements in Great Smoky Mountain. Next, I've mentioned this before, but the Highway Construction Trade Academies are this initiative through the Office of Civil Rights to try to train more people in construction, to give them hands-on training. We just had a graduating class come out of the one in New Bern. And then for this one, we did, Nick, that's the next page. And so we did a couple new things. The division worked really closely with the training class and was able to bring people into the maintenance yard and give them real hands-on practical experience and more connections to private contractors, trying to get people placed in the jobs and let them really learn more of the business enterprise side of things. And then, of course, as always, I have some fun updates for you at the end. We're all familiar with school speed zones, temporary lower speeds to protect people going to school. Out on the coast, they have to worry about birds. And so there's actually a temporary speed zone to help protect migratory purple martins. I just found that very interesting. But from dusk till dawn, the speed limit's being lowered from 55 to 20. And this has apparently been in place for several years and is successful. And then just, more stuff coming down the pipeline. We're of course making new inventive use of drone deliveries and drone usage. In this instance, to deliver medical supplies or to test run medical supplies. This, of course, can be repurposed in the mountains very effectively. And the other one was that we recently won an award for our installation of continuous flow intersection on NC-16. And really, when you see these type of projects win these accolades, just expect this design and these reduced conflict interchanges to gain more and more momentum to be rolled out across the state, because we are really seeing some success with them. There's a standard update on the cash balance, and otherwise I try to be quick. Are there any questions today before we move on? Okay, Mike, I hope I didn't steal your thunder again.
Well, you read my mind because you did steal my thunder. Darn it. Those are the breaks. I do want to talk a little bit about the infrastructure bill. I've got a little bit more detailed breakdown on that. Of course, it made it to the Senate. It's going back to the House. We are basically all witnessing how sausage is made, because Lord knows what it's going to look like when it finally gets passed. But I am confident that it is going to get passed. It just might not look the way it looks right now. But anyway, the current breakdown is $110 billion for roads, bridges, and safety, $39 billion for public transit, $66 billion for passenger and freight rail, $7.5 billion for electric vehicles and charging stations and infrastructure, $65 billion for broadband with a focus on rural communities, $25 billion on airports, ports, and waterways, $55 billion on clean drinking water efforts, which include replacing lead pipes and other utility infrastructure, 73 billion on power grid infrastructure, and finally 21 billion on environmental cleanup. I'm sure by tomorrow all those numbers are going to be different, but we'll just have to wait to see. But I am confident that something good is going to come out of all this. Might not be exactly what everybody wanted, but we are way far ahead of where we've been in quite some time, and it's I think it's pretty exciting. That's about it for me.
Thank you, Mike. Just really quick on committees and work groups, prioritization, we canceled our August meeting. I think that's the first break that subcommittee has gotten in over a year. But our next meeting is September 7th, and we anticipate having a pretty good docket for that one. Transit operators and 5307 subrecipient work group. I believe Emily's working on scheduling those meetings out for the next year. Citizens Advisory Committee, the last meeting was July 14th. The next meeting is October 13th. One thing to note there is they've requested more of a newsletter kind of form from the MPO. So expect to see something like that in the next day or two. And the Hellbender Trail Stakeholder Group, they last met July 29th. Corridor studies, just really quickly, those are going through city committees and eventually to council. At the moment, the final reports for those are available on the MPO's website. Any questions or comments? Okay, we can go into legislative updates. I won't go too much into the federal update, but Daniel and Mike, I think, covered that pretty well. There are some pretty big changes, including a few changes that would impact MPO planning, including a proposal to add additional planning factors for the MPO to consider, including housing. So we'll see how that goes. And also in terms of the SDBG-DA fund and TAP funding, there is an increase in the current bill over the next 5 years, as well as a change in how those funds would be distributed statewide. I believe as it's currently written, the distribution would have more of those fundings going to urban areas or large urban areas, but also have kind of a different provision for smaller urban areas to start to utilize those funds as well. In terms of state updates, again, I think the big thing is the budget. That's gone through the state and the House. There are some differences between what's gone through, but there is a lot of transportation information in there. One thing to note, besides kind of an increase in the budget for the highway fund, is an increase in Powell bill funding, somewhat minor, not a huge increase, but for jurisdictions that utilize Powell bill funds, there is an increase in what the House passed versus what was passed in the Senate. Another item of note is there is a study that's proposed to look at how the prioritization process can emphasize projects that go between different states. So projects connecting to South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, looking at how STI can change to better accommodate that. Just a couple of others that we noted in the June meeting, a modified utility vehicle definition and use of DOT funds towards a ferry project that did pass and was signed by the governor over the summer. But other than that, I think it's mostly budget. As Nick's scrolling through, we did attach a summary of the infrastructure bill as it passed the Senate. That was made available to us from the Association of MPOs. So please feel free to look through, but we do expect, as Mike said, some changes before that becomes official.
And just one more side admin note from staff here. We've been told we've had some issues with the website on mobile devices. So that's something we've been working on here. Particularly opening new tabs and new pages on the website has been problematic. So we are working on that. And yeah, look forward to a better mobile experience in the future.
This is
Okay.
heard the question in chat about the details on the housing construction, housing considerations in the plan. There's a little bit in the detailed explanation included, but my interpretation of reading the bill last night was a lot of it is opening up the MPO authority a little broader into may do this, may do that type of situations, may develop a housing plan, may, look at these integration type of scenarios. I didn't see much that was very directive. MPOs shall do anything, but it's a lot of pages. I may be misinterpreting that, but I think it's just trying to nudge and push people into more cooperative planning with those responsible for housing and zoning and local officials. I'm not 100% sure why that's needed. I feel like we reach out to those people, but there may be more in that language that I haven't fully absorbed or seen yet. I don't know if anybody else has dug into that yet, though. So if anybody else has comment.
I think you pretty much covered it. I think it's mainly the way I read it, just a requirement that the MPOs consider housing and housing policy through their regions and how it affects the transportation network as they develop their MTP. Our current MTP already mentions housing quite a bit. So I will say that it's definitely important to transportation. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what new requirements will be expected of MPOs.
Okay, sorry I had to step away. Thanks for kind of moving on without me. We're down to our last portion of the agenda, announcements, news, special updates, our topics for the next meeting.
A couple quick things. Again, a newsletter has been developed at the request of the Citizens Advisory Committee, just to kind of go over a few things at the MPO and upcoming meetings, public input opportunities. Basically, it's pretty similar to the emails I send out periodically, but I've been told that the emails need to look better and be more aesthetically pleasing. So Emily's been working on that. I think the draft looks really good. Also, just a heads up, we are working on building the existing regional land use database for our base year. That's part of what we do every 5 years for the region's 25-year plan. So we are at the point where we will be reaching out to local governments to help review this data, see if there's anything we've missed, anything we got wrong. Basically, we're trying to get a snapshot of how land was being used throughout the region in 2020. That's something that plays a pretty substantial role in the development of the region's travel demand model. David, I see your question. Did SMAP and ROPE get added back to the state budget? I don't want to say anything for certain because I haven't checked on that specifically, but I know that's been a priority for a lot of folks. And so I will check on that and get back with you.
Tristan, Daniel here, question on what you just said about the land use update. And I should know the answer to this, but I don't. Was the census data released last week or 2 weeks ago as scheduled at the block level?
I believe that release is today.
It's coming out today at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah. Data nerds, start your engines. But in terms of the land use, no, we are not incorporating that data as of yet. I think as of right now, it's more of the kind of, is this commercial? Is this low density residential, high density residential? Making sure that the land uses that are out there or were out there in 2020 are being accurately reflected in our regional database. We went through a similar process back in, I want to say 2017 or 18. So we'll be going through that again. Nick and John back on our staff have been working on this for a few months, and I think are going to roll out a bit more user-friendly and virtual-friendly way of reviewing that data and getting comments back to us.
Okay, we're at our next round for our second round of public comment. Emily, has there been anyone that wanted to give public comment?
No, there's not.
Okay, unless there's any other comments from everyone, we are adjourned. Thank you, and we'll see you next month.
Great, thank you all.